Okay, let's talk about a process. We have a different process in our life. Sometime we should instruct something. Sometime we have to emphasize or we have to get the right order. Sometime we have to describe different stages of a process. Sometime we could explain how things work, and sometimes we describe a thing in a passive describing process. So these five situation condition are really helpful while you explain about any process. When we operate a laptop, or when we operate anything scientific instrument, we need process. And when we talk about the stages of a process, we need a process. When we explain how things work, suppose laptop works, suppose our pen works, suppose anything, the thing work. When we talk about that work of that thing, we could use this process. When we describe anything in a passive sentence, there's too you can use this process. So these all are the five different the situation and condition. First one, while you emphasizing or getting the right order, use this process and technique. And while you're talking instruction for making or operating things, you use it. And the next one, describing a different stages of the process, you can use it. Next one, explain how thing works, there also you could use it. And the last one is when you do passive describing process, at that time too it really helpful to you, so that you may have been suffering from some kinds of inability to describe anything in your styles. That is not because of your confidence, but because of a lack of a grammar style, and that is not letting you go in your style. So today I have here is video which can hack whatever the doubts inside you, and erase whatever the doubt totally from your from your speaking or from your writing style. Next one is, you can see the process. While we emphasize the right order, don't do it. When you do it, that would be incorrect one. You would not be to be doing that. You would be to be doing that when you express. At that time, this one structure, grammar structure, really helpful. You shouldn't do it. If you do it, that would be the wrong. In that way, if you want to describe anything, then it is very helpful to you. Look at the first grammar structure: subject plus should plus b1 plus object first action before, and the second action subject b1 equal to second action is the second way. Another structure too, you can see the subject plus shouldn't plus b1 plus object second action we should do first, and before or after until you have plus b3 plus object we could write, otherwise you might have some problem. For example, here is given two structure. Keep it in your mind once, look them and try use them in your speaking too, so that you could easily change whatever you think in your language to the English. So first thing is example one. You can say, for example, here are two works, the turn of the main and change your fuse. And what you do the first, if you do the if you turn off the main and you change the fuse, that is a correct one. At that time there is no electric shock. If you change the fuse without turning off the main, obviously you get an electric shock. So that what should be done in a right order so as to not get electric shock? Here is a technique. In a first example, you can see you should turn off the main before you change the fuse. There is no problem. This is the right order. Next example, you can see here you shouldn't change the fuse until you've turned off the main, and this is also a correct order. if you should if you don't change your fuse, then you do not have any problem. But what you should do first, you should turn off the main before you change fuse. And while you talk about getting order, at that time this one is really helpful to you. Try it. For example, touch the chase piece, decide where to move. Which action? Here are two action. First one, touch the chase piece, and the second action, decide where to move. What you do first? When you talk in a first grammar structure, at that time you can use you shouldn't touch. You should decide where to move before you touch the chase piece. When you talk in a second structure, you shouldn't touch the chase until you've decided where to move. These two way, you can emphasize the right order. You can talk or getting about right order. One is here instruction process. These instruction process are really important while you especially talk it in your style. Suppose you have a two event together. One is bandage a wound and clean it. Which action you do first? First one is here, if you clean a wound before you bandage it, that is a correct order. So that in this way, whatever the example you could say, for example, hear news, go outside. Which you do first? And the second one action, first you hear the news, then you go outside. So hear the news first before you go outside. And last example is here, close the window, go outside. What you do first? You close the window, then you go outside. When you talk about instruction process, you could say close window before you go outside. In this way, you may use this way of a style in your other examples too. And the next one is the natural process style. We have a different natural process. When we have iron that expand, when we get stumbles, at that time our leg swells. When the thread stays, when we pull the thread, it gets stretches. In this way, here are some natural process. One is expand, another is swell, next one is stretch, third one is contract, fourth one is shrink, fifth one is melt, sixth one is dissolve, set, freeze, congeal, evaporate, and condense. All these used in your ways. The iron expand when it heats, leg swells when it stumbles, stress thread stretches when we pull it, and ice contact as it gets cold. When we shrink our body when anything touches the body, and ice melts when it gets sunlight. Salt dissolves in water when it gets heat. Cement sets hard when it mixes into water. Water freezes when it gets cold. Blood congeals when it comes out, and water evaporates and condense. These all are the natural process. And when you talk about a natural process, please do not forget use of present tense, which is simple present and simple present. Simple present, that means subject plus b1 b5 plus subject. You can use in between these two simple present tense, you can use when you describe natural process. That's what you remind at a time of talking about natural. Next one is when we are going to do the some work, which is a process. Suppose you have a letter. First you write a letter, then you type it, then you send publisher, and then you print it, then you invite your guest in your marriage ceremony. Same the thing if we express it in a passive voice. How to express? Here I have some technique, so this technique can help you reach at your goal of fluency. So first thing is, therefore you could say, well, for here sample letter has been written, it is typed out neatly and sent to the publisher. It is then printed at last, having enveloped it, it is invited in the marriage ceremony of a vizalser. For next example, example 2, well, we first collect the letter from a letter box, then we take them to the sorting office, then we stamp on the first mark. This is what all the sentences there in active voice. How could we change them into the passive voice? Here is, let's look the next example how it is. Try to know it. First, letters are collected from the box. When they've been collected from the letter box, they're taken to the sorting office. When they've been taken to a sorting office, the postmarks are stamped on. This is what passive voice of this active voice example. Likewise, you can use in your style while you have other process of anything in your life. When you strike with any example of a process, you can use it into the passive voice, or how the way how I described here. Next one is describe the different stages of a process. When you turned the engine, when you turn the engine on, you should put the car in a gear. जब इन्जिनलाई चाहिँ चलाउँछौ अनि कारलाई चाहिँ गियरमा राख्नुपर्छ भन्नुभयो. When you turned the engine on, you should put the car in. And when the butter melts, you should put in the bowl. तपाईले यसो गरेपछि यसो गर्नुहुन्छ भन्ने कुरा स्टेजको बारेमा when you talk about that, one is also really helpful. Next one is when we talk about causative verbs. These causative verbs are like a leader. They don't do any work themselves. They try to get their work done by any people. Here some grammatical structure. That grammatical structure helps you while you use them in the sentence, while you use causative verb. One is prevent from. When you have use a before, it means बचाउँछ. And allow to v1, which means अनुमति दिन्छ. Gets 2 plus v1 v3 लाई गर्न लगाउँछ. make plus v1 गर्न लगाउँछ. But make, when you use a make, that is especially for the situation when someone is going to tell you with the force, do that, use this make plus v1 structure. Have plus v1 v3 structure use when you are going to do, or when you are going to get your things done by anyone with his responsibility. Then use this structure. When you talk about a get or use your get in your writing style, that is when you are going to get your work with the persuasion. Use this one get, which is causative verb. Last one is let. You can say let plus v1 लाई जान दिन्छ भन्ने अर्थ दिन्छ. For example, you are going to fill a gas in a cylinder, and how it allows a gas inside and what process is inside. Let's look at here what happens. Here you can see the use of a prevent plus before structure and allow plus v1 structure. You can see in a structure 2. The air pressure in the cylinder prevents valve from opening. The airlock allows the carbon dioxide gas to escape. सिलिन्डरमा हावाको चापले भल्भलाई खुल्नमा बचाउँछ. बिर्कोले ग्यासलाई निस्किन दिन्न. That's what it is in Nepali. And